It's the start of a brand new year, and the Lord of Darkness himself, Mark Zuckerberg, has decided to kick things off by asking the world to show us all how much they've changed over the last decade. The jury's still very much out as to whether or not the 10-year challenge is a sweet bit of harmless fun, or in fact, if it's actually a really creepy, sinister attempt at data mining for facial recognition software. But I thought I'd bring an idea to the table of putting together the 10-year challenge, the street art edition. So in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at how some of your favourite artists have changed things and mixed up their styles over the last decade, right here, right now. My name's Doug, you're watching Fifth Wall TV. I just want to give a shout out to everybody that's been following this channel over the last few. Big up yourselves. The Instagram finally just broke 10k, so I finally get that little K next to the number. I finally entered the big leagues, mum. Next up, we're looking for that M. If you don't already, make sure you follow us right now on Instagram at Fifth Wall TV. And while you're here, why not subscribe to the channel on YouTube? So happy New Year to you all. I hope you had a good holiday. What better way to kick off a brand new year than to look 10 years into the past? At least that's the idea behind the 10-year challenge. Cast your mind back, if you will. 2009, a simpler time, a time when the Black Eyed Peas had a feeling, when Michael Jackson was about to embark on a comeback tour and Kevin Spacey and half of Hollywood still had careers. Most importantly, the word Brexit was nowhere near our vernacular.
You like popsicles?
Tweaking on these nostalgic heartstrings, Facebook decided to kick the year off by asking its users to show the world how well, or often how horrifically, they've aged over the last 10. As always with Facebook though, it looks like not all is as it seems, with many speculating that the entire campaign was just an attempt at getting us to upload very clear examples of how the aging process may work and vary, the data of which will be fed into algorithms developing facial recognition software, once again proving that data privacy is not a concept that Mark Zuckerberg has any grasp of. To celebrate this triumph of weirdness, join me now as we take a look at how some of the bigger names have been impacted over the last decade. If we're going to talk big names, there is no bigger name than Banksy. Even though it was still a whole year or two until Instagram was launched back in 2008, 2009, Banksy was still dominating this scene. Here's how he looked in 2008, and here's how he looks in 2018. No, but seriously. Here's some of Banksy's work from 2008, 2009, and here's his most recent piece at the tail end of 2018. As you can see, the stencils are very much still in play. He hasn't deviated too much conceptually and thematically. There's still a lot of similarities in there, but the biggest notable difference is the technical execution at which he's now operating. Whatever your thoughts are on Banksy, you cannot deny that technically his work has improved. Of course, then, now one of you just says, well, he's not making them. Look, that's a conversation for another video. American superstar KAWS is a really interesting one to look at, because if you take his work from 2008, 2009 and then compare it with what he's doing now, there's not necessarily huge technical evolutions, but what really stands out is not only the scale at which he's operating, it's the different spaces within various cultures that he now occupies. If we take a look at some of the work from Barry McGee's 2009 show at Galleria Alessandra Bonomo in Rome, and then compare that with some of the work from his 2018 show at Chime & Reed in New York, you can see this continuation of this unmistakable visual language. And here's a few selections from the American painter and muralist Maya HAYUK, and some from the French photographer JR. Probably the biggest change that the mural superstar Shepard Fairey is operating at is, well, not only a few legal battles, but just generally the scale and quantity at which he's now operating. Much like KAWS and Shepard Fairey, the Japanese artist Takashi Murakami's biggest change isn't necessarily within his artwork itself, but just the different spaces of culture that he now comfortably sits in, particularly the fashion world. I think with this particular group though, it would be interesting to take a look at the decades beforehand to see some of the real big changes. 2008's Beautiful Losers showed us this early DIY culture. In 2001, we had Murakami's Super Flat Manifesto, and it was round about this period that we saw the real key stages in Banksy's development that just subsequently influenced the entire culture. Things really get interesting though when we take a look at some of the newer names that have come through the scene. Firstly, I had to pick out the Iranian brothers Icy and Salt for this because I think the level of change we've seen in their work since they started out is so blindingly obvious. Their early stencil Banksy-esque work in 2008-2009 compared with the likes of their installation and sculptural work last year, the jump is just massive. I would definitely argue though that nothing has changed quite like the mural circuit. With the snug arrival of the visually driven app Instagram, it seems that the two movements have just exploded and completely reimagined the way that we both create and consume this culture. This is how an ARYZ piece looked back in 2009 compared with his work in 2018. And if we just look at these two, we completely miss out this entire series of hugely influential character-based works. Much the same can be said of the early graphic works of Poland's ETAM crew. Compared with the duo's more recent solo projects, we see both the artists individually settle very comfortably into a far more mature space. The Spanish artist ESCIF has always occupied this same human-scale, provoking and conceptual space, but his 2017 project Breath really showcased this flex in his grander vision. There's quite clear signs of the influence ESCIF had on the early work of the Argentinian artist HYURO, who over the last decade has completely redefined her identity and emerged as one of the scene's leading figures. Another fun one to look at is the Irish painter CONOR Harrington, who has carried on his signature themes of hypermasculinity, but has developed technically completely beyond recognition and sits very comfortably within the contemporary art world now. And here's how South Africa's FWTV has changed over the years. Finally, big up Michael Swank for sending this in from Mexico. You can see a huge difference in his technical output, and a slightly smaller thanks to Edwin for sending this in. So there was a wee look at how the culture and artists have changed over the last decade. With the technological developments of phones and the normalization of apps like Instagram, that last decade may have changed the art world in a way that we will never see again. I really do look forward to seeing how things start to change in the future. I'll be with you along for the ride. Till next time, my name's Doug. This was FWTV. If you did enjoy this video, why not tag a friend that you think might be interested as well, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FWTV.